Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Friday morning. This is the I'm Getting Too Old edition of Hot Mike on WDAY Extra at InForum.com. We've reached the end of the work week. Ready for the weekend. Rodeos in town. That might be the only good thing happening around this part of the world this weekend, considering it's still freaking cold outside and we're not going to melt anything. And my street has become like Thunderdome with how rocky it is now that it's melted, water, melt. It's a bad situation. Why I said I'm Getting Too Old edition, which is just, we can use that every day. I'm sitting on my couch. My wife had gone to bed. It's 10:20, 10:25. The last two basketball games are going on. I watched Florida Atlantic beat Tennessee. Shout out to the Owls. That's a pretty good win there. And I'm seeing up in the top right corner that the Gonzaga-UCLA game is getting good. I'm like, well, that was, we put it on What to Watch for a reason yesterday. Going to miss the end of that. And flip it on, and Gonzaga's doing its thing and coming back. And I literally I'm sitting up. I'm not laying down. I am sitting up. And I fell asleep, sitting up. Because the next thing I know, whatever TBS has on at 12:30 at night is playing. And I have no idea. I got up, turned the TV off. The dog came, went to bed. So, woke up this morning and saw Good Morning America, Gonzaga won. I'm like, wow, that. And then I saw how it ended. I'm like, wow, that was a heck of a game. Wish I could have stayed up and seen it. It was all intent. And another reminder that things that I used to do without any issue are suddenly becoming a heck of a lot harder to do at this age. So we'll show you that in just a second. We got a fun Friday here on tap. Another busy sports day. I will freely, second time this week, I'm going to say I'm wrong. So mark it down, people. It doesn't happen often. First time was the World Baseball Classic. Second was on the Hockey Regional, as that happened yesterday in Fargo out at Shields Arena. And Eric was there, our executive producer, Eric Bedell, went to the games. He sent me a couple photos, and just watching on television, the crowd was really good. It was better than I thought. I thought with UND not being there, you could shoot a cannon through the place, and you're not going to touch anybody. And that was inaccurate. The crowds were really good. We're going to visit with Brad Schlossman coming up in our second hour about that. So I mark me down as wrong and surprised. I know Minnesota would bring fans. I didn't think that many. St. Cloud State brought a good amount of people, and they're going to be here tomorrow night for the region championship game. But that was eye-opening, I guess, is the best way to describe that. So we had that going on yesterday. The rest of the hockey tournament will unfurl today. We've got Minnesota State basketball semifinal day 2 with Class A and Double A. DGF will play tonight in the final game at 8 o'clock. We're going to preview that coming up later on in our show this morning. Some exciting games there yesterday with Wayzata and Lakeville North went right down to the wire in the final game of the day in 4A, and Wayzata pulled that out. There is some local angles there for that Wayzata team. They're going to play Park Center for the state championship tomorrow night. So you had that going on. Obviously, the NCAA basketball tournament was going. We'll have the rest of the Sweet 16 play out tonight, and we'll figure out our Elite Eight teams. So you had all that going on. It was a good sports day. And we got another one here on tap because the women's basketball tournament resumes today. And ESPN has figured this out on how to schedule it. They literally have all 4 games back to back to back to back, which is the way to go, starting, I think, at like 1:30 today. Tomorrow, that changes up a little bit, but they have a game going on ABC tomorrow, which is good, which is Ohio State UConn, by the way, which is on WDAY tomorrow, right in the middle of the afternoon at 3 o'clock. So that's A-okay. If you're going to get anybody on, those 2 teams would be okay to do. So another big sports weekend on tap was with the baseball season right around the corner. So with that said, let's show you, because I'm going to watch it for the first time with everybody, is the Gonzaga-UCLA game in Vegas last night, because apparently it was a heck of a finish that Gonzaga came back and won. Facing UCLA, again, this is a rematch of the 2021 national semifinal that Jalen Suggs at the buzzer beater. UCLA had built a sizable lead. You see, they were up 6. We're constricted, by the way, with how many highlights we can show you by the NCAA and CBS. But Gonzaga takes the lead there at 61-59. Now they're up 7. They just couldn't miss. 3-pointer here straight on gives the Zags a 10-point lead in this game. UCLA would rally with an and 1 here to get this back down to a 3-point game. Drew Timme, who's been in college for 28 years, misses a free throw here. They could have put it away. UCLA down 2 here. And, of course, what happens? The Bruins knock down a 3 and take the lead on Amari Bailey knocks down. But Julian Strother comes right back from the logo. I'm going to get on that in a minute because the logo is too big. The guys can think they can make it. Gives Gonzaga the lead. UCLA doesn't call. They don't have any timeouts left. Ball gets stripped away. They get one last chance at it here after Gonzaga makes 1 of 2, and the 3 at the horn is missed. And how about Gonzaga? They come back and win it 79-76, and they're moving on to the Elite 8. They're going to get Connecticut there. That game is tomorrow night. That's the late game tomorrow night on TBS after Connecticut just destroyed Arkansas in a game that really wasn't competitive. That'll be for the region championship. You can see they'll play the other side of the bracket. The games are going to be happening down in Kansas City later tonight with Houston and Miami playing and Xavier against Texas, which if we end up getting to Houston and a Texas regional final on Sunday, that would be A-okay, I think, for college basketball fans around. But congrats to Mark Few and Gonzaga. They pulled one out of the fire there last night to beat UCLA. That was a great nightcap to how the day started. And we thought about putting this on What to Watch simply because of the teams and the environment. But Michigan State, Kansas State was just scintillating at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, and you had a historic performance from Marquise Noel last night of Kansas State, who has stolen the show in this tournament so far, and his play last night was indicative of that. Kansas State was up here as he drives. He went down, hurt his ankle, so he got taped up. Of course, he wasn't coming out of the game. I mean, literally, he was doing that, taking the ball away and banking in shots. Just like, what? How did that go in? Another shot from the logo, and another one went in. I mean, the logo is too big, first off. The guys think they can make it there. Michigan State answered back, got a 3 there, got it within 2. Here with under 10 seconds to go. The drive and the layup ties it up at 82, so we go to overtime. This is going to be the play of the tournament. Unless we get a buzzer beater, Noel arguing with Jerome Tang and then decides, you know what? I'm going to throw an alley-oop to Keontae Johnson, who, by the way, is another amazing story of this for a guy who collapsed on the court at Florida and still playing. That 3 gave Kansas State the lead. Michigan State here never got a shot off. They had a chance to tie, and of course, Noel gets it and lays this in before the buzzer, just as the cherry on top, as Kansas State beats Michigan State 98-93 at overtime. Noel's stats are crazy. 20 points, tournament record, 19 assists, had 5 steals to get Kansas State the win and send them on to the Elite 8, where they're going to get Florida Atlantic there. The Owls beat Tennessee. First time that they will reach the Elite 8. And just a quick word on where Kansas State is now athletically, because we had Gene Taylor on the show, right before the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans when Kansas State was set to play Alabama after Kansas State had won the Big 12 championship with Chris Kleiman leading the way. They won the Big 12 championship game over TCU, and we know how it played out. Alabama did what they do. And we talked about this briefly with Kolpak on Monday's show. Gene Taylor had two unenviable tasks taking over as athletic director. He had to find a respectful way to move Bill Snyder out as head football coach, which he did, and then hired a guy that he knew he was going to take shots over. We talked about that when Gene came on the show, that he would get a bunch of emails, phone calls. I'm sure he got a bunch of people coming up to him saying, what the hell are you doing hiring an FCS guy? Think that's panned out all right in the 4 years that Kleiman has been the head football coach at Kansas State, of course, now making it to a Sugar Bowl. And then he had to replace Bruce Weber, pretty successful guy that's won at numerous places, and things had fizzled at K-State. He moves Weber out, brings in Jerome Tang, a longtime assistant, and we've showed a couple of their games this season. I mean, it has been an electric year, and now they're in the Elite Eight on the doorstep of going to the Final Four. I mean, when you look at the two biggest things that you can have for your athletic program, athletic team in a calendar year, in a sports calendar year, it is make a New Year's Six bowl game and either the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four. After that, it's gravy. They've done that at K-State. That is a heck of a run. And they will be favored to win in that game on Saturday. That's the early game tomorrow, 5 o'clock from Madison Square Garden on TBS between K-State and FAU. Heck of a run there. That's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch. Noel is just a stud to watch. That play, if we can cue it up, guys, it's been replayed. It's going to be all over Twitter. If it was on purpose or not. Now, Tang said in the post-game press conference that was a legit argument that Noel and Tang were having about what play to run. And you can see they're literally out of the corner of his eye, then he throws an alley-oop, a no-look alley-oop. I mean, it may look scripted. Either way, it ends up with one of the most phenomenal plays that you can have. It looked pretty good to me. If it was scripted, it worked out about as well as you could have hoped. And K-State gets the win. Lastly, for our opening segment, mixed in with all the other things happening, was the Minnesota Wild playing on ESPN last night. A trip to Philadelphia. The Wild, of course, got a big-time win in Jersey on Tuesday, facing a Flyers team that's not very good. And this is going to just be a Matthew Boldy appreciation highlight because he's unconscious right now. Scored again last night. That was goal 24. Tied the game up at 2. It's a 3-all game in the third. Guess who scores again? This goal is ridiculous. Watch this. I saw this live. Like, what? What did he do here? He went between his own legs, between the defenseman and the goaltender's legs to score? That made it 4-3. But the Flyers answered back. Tyson Forster scores here. Ties the game at 4. We have to go to a shootout after we get another replay of that goal. So in the shootout now, where the Wild have had some success, nice little backhanded goal there from James Van Riemsdyk to give the Flyers the lead. So now it comes on Boldy. He's got to keep the score to keep the game going, but he's denied by Carter Hart. And the Flyers get the extra point with a 5-4 win. And, okay, they lost out on a point, though, of getting the extra point. You see they've got 10 games in a row on the road they've gotten a point out of. That's fantastic. Boldy's just unconscious right now. 25 goals. As Dean Evison, the head coach of the Wild, said the other day that apparently Kaprizov was holding Boldy down since Kaprizov's gone out of the lineup. Boldy's been out. You saw that stat up there during the highlights that Boldy didn't score in February. Now he's got 9 goals alone in the month of March, and we still have 7 days left in it. And the Wild will be back in action tomorrow night to play the Blackhawks. We know what they have coming up next week, which is going to be highly entertaining, both for the sports teams, and you see the stat there, 9 goals in 11 games for Boldy in the month of March. That's pretty good stuff. And both for the winter professional teams that we follow, next week is going to be the week here. With the Wild, they have Seattle coming up. They've got Vegas coming up. You see where they are in their playoff races here. The Wild now a point behind Dallas still for that Central Division. They're going for the Central. That's what you're aiming for now. Go for the division title because that means you don't play Colorado at least in the first round. Likely that means you're going to play Seattle because as it works right now, Vegas would be the number 1 seed. They would get Winnipeg, and the Wild would get the Kraken. Now, the Kraken have owned the Wild in their brief 2 years. Just in the regular season, Seattle has played really well against Minnesota. But to me, you want to play Seattle before you want to play Colorado. I know the Avalanche aren't the team that they were a year ago when they won the Cup, but you don't want to mess around with Colorado. At least if you can get through to the second round. You got to beat them out. I know them all, but if you can hold off as long as possible, that's probably a good idea. We got a packed show coming up for you here in just a few minutes. We'll be joined by DGF boys basketball head coach Mike Clark in the Twin Cities. Tonight's the night for the Rebels. They will face off against Albany in the 2A semifinal. Seems like forever ago they played their quarterfinal game. It was Tuesday. Been sitting around for the last 2 days. Now they'll play tonight. We'll preview that coming up at 9:20. At 9:35, Jory Collins will be back with us, North Dakota State women's basketball head coach. We'll put a bow on the Bison women's season and where things go here in the offseason. Obviously, there's already been some portal news. Nothing yet on the Bison women's team. We'll ask him all what objectives that he has on his plate here with the Bison offseason now here. And at 10 o'clock, Brad Schlossman will join us. Of course, he was at the rink last night at Shields Arena. Recap the 2 semifinal games there. Look ahead to the games today. And who is moving on to the Frozen Four? We had 2 number 1 seeds bite the bullet. One number 1 seed bite the bullet yesterday. The reigning champs, Denver, got knocked out by Cornell. So we'll have a new national champion here in 2023. And we'll preview the other games coming up later today. That and a heck of a lot more on our show on this Friday. We'll take a break. Hot Mike off and rolling here on this Friday morning. We're back after this on WDAY Extra at InForum.com. Welcome back, everybody, here on this Friday morning edition of Hot Mike, WDAY Extra, InForum.com. Jory Collins, North Dakota State women's basketball head coach, coming up in about 15 minutes' time. You know, I mentioned in last night with all the different sporting events going on, of course, the great games on the Sweet 16. I flipped on the Minnesota State basketball tournament, watched Wayzata and Lakeville North play a thriller that the Trojans ended up winning that game. So the 3A and the 4A championships are set. We'll find out Class A and 2A later today, and we could have a local representative in the 2A championship game. DGF plays tonight against Albany in the 2A semifinals. The late game, 8 o'clock tonight. That means our next guest has plenty of time to join us here this morning as we welcome Mike Clark onto our show. Back again, the head coach of the DGF boys. I was joking with you off air. It seems like it was like 2 weeks ago you played your quarterfinal game. What have you guys been doing the last 2 days down there?
Retired Representative Paul Marcourt gave us a tour of the state capitol yesterday. So, you know, we've been down here a long time, but we've been able to keep busy every day.
Well, as I joke with you, it beats not playing, right?
Exactly. Anytime you're playing at this time of the year, it's an awesome thing. That's for sure.
Tell me about the emotions waking up even this morning. Like, okay, yeah, we got to wait a little bit, but we're playing in the state semifinals tonight.
The kids have been really excited, especially after Tuesday night game. That was a great experience at the barn. Something they'll remember forever. Obviously, to come out on top and win a state tournament game is an awesome thing. one thing about these kids is they've risen to the challenge all year. We've pretty much been an underdog all throughout the playoffs, with the exception of the first couple rounds of the section. But they're used to that underdog role. They've risen to the occasion. They play some of their best basketball of the year in tournament time, and you can't ask for anything more.
Well, I want to go back to the game on Tuesday. We roll the highlights of a game that was a roller coaster for you as a coach to see the momentum swings when Owen pulls up like for a 35-footer and makes that. Tell me about just how you're handling that as a coach as the game is moving on.
Well, basketball is a game of runs, and PEM had a bunch of runs, and every time they would go on a little run, we seemed to have an answer for it. And we had some kids step up and hit some big shots, and then we always got the Owen X factor. So, Owen can get you back in a game in a hurry with all his talents. So, like you said, it was a roller coaster ride of emotions. We understand that. That's kind of the way our games have been all season. Resiliency is one key word for these kids. No matter how much they get down, no matter how they're playing, they stay even keel. And they're resilient. They just come to play every game, and they know they're never out of anything.
Mike, when PM got the lay-in to go up by 1, and obviously Owen's going to take – is that a play where you say, okay, hey, Owen, you do what you need to do, or is that something specifically you drew up?
Well, we wanted to set a ball screen and let him create off of it. We tried to put a shooter over in the corner, and basically it's just telling Owen, go and do what you do. He can create, he can make shots for himself. So in the end, Owen is an outstanding player, but he's also that player that if he has a wide open teammate, he'll give up the ball. He's just a special player, and it's great to have him in our program and on our team.
I got to ask you, I have not had a chance to actually ask a coach this, but you fouled up 3. Is that always a strategy, or is that something just for that game on Tuesday night?
Well, when there was only, I think there was 4.4 seconds left, definitely we wanted to let them get the ball inbound, give them one dribble and then foul. They won their section title game on 3 at the buzzer, and we didn't want that to happen to us that night. So we took our chances on getting the foul and then boxing out and getting a rebound.
The emotion after the game. Tell me, when you went to the locker room, what was that like with you and your team?
It was pretty awesome. We had a pretty good celebration. I'm getting to the age where I got to quit having these celebrations because it ends up hurting my body in the end. But the kids really get after it, and at my age, I got to quit with the chest bumping and stuff like that because it catches up with me in a hurry. So I try to recover for a couple of days after every one of these big wins.
They
celebrated hard, and they really, really enjoyed it.
I remember seeing you last year with calling the DGF Perham game of how bitter a loss that was. Were you fully anticipating seeing them again? And how surprised were you that Barnesville got them in the section semis?
Well, not just it. Barnesville had a good team this year. And when they play their type of game, they can be really on. And I was, as everybody was, it was pretty surprising that Perham lost. Perham's been a juggernaut for years, and they're well coached. Coach Cressup down there does an outstanding job. And typically, they get in game situations like that, and they're the ones that come out on top. It was a surprise. We had anticipating seeing them, obviously. And if we got there, the thing about our section tournament this year, it was so competitive, and there was a lot of parity in it.
Yep.
And it was one of those tournaments where if you didn't come to play on a given night, you could go home. And I'm just glad our boys never give up, and we come out in the end there. I'm
a little off topic here. I will ask though, was this the first time you guys had seeded 1 through 16, and what did you think of that?
No, we have seeded 1 through 16 in the past.
Okay.
I think it was 2 years we went with a north-south section format, but prior to that, I think 4 years prior to that, we seeded 1 through 16. And I think I just believe in the 1 through 16.
I do, yeah.
Simply because there can be so much parity between the north and south subsections.
Yep.
And typically they cross bracket after the first round anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I like that format of hopefully that keeps going for how dynamite 8AA is. Hopefully that's the case. We had Owen on the show yesterday, but now you've been around basketball a long time. 78 points in the last 2 games. Just reflect on how special this has been, especially the section championship game. To have 50 points is just, that doesn't happen.
Well, it doesn't happen, but do you know any given night that Owen's capable of doing whatever he wants? There isn't many players around him that like that in the area. There's a lot of great athletes, but not many can score the basketball like he can. Yeah. And the best thing about Owen is, how many times have we seen it in the playoffs? Especially, he misses the first shot, grabs a rebound, gets a putback of his own missed shot. So, just the work ethic and the sheer humbleness of the kid. I couldn't be more proud to have a player like that represent our team in our school district. That's for sure.
Now you get set for Albany tonight. We were joking off air. You told me the first thing, they're huge. How much is that a thing you embrace, knowing what the challenge is tonight?
Well, and that's kind of been our mantra all season. We don't have the biggest team on earth. I mean, we got Grant Anderson at 6'5" and Owen at 6'6", and then everybody else is right around that 6 foot mark. Tonight we'll play an Albany team where I don't know that they start a guy under 6'3", and a couple of the guys are really built too. So I mean, it's going to be a tall task, but I think the kids know that they have to come out and play scrappy tonight. It's a straight state tournament, so you have to give everything you have. And like I said, being in that role all season, it hasn't phased us. I think they'll be up for a challenge, and we'll just see what happens.
How about for yourself being on the sidelines at Target Center tonight? That little pinch me moment for you tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. You know, I'm going to be quite honest with you, though. I really love the atmosphere at the barn. I think the kids really don't understand the history as much as I do of the barn. And for me, that was my first game coaching at the barn. So
nice.
That was a great experience. Target Center is going to be awesome too, obviously, because it's a semifinal game. But honestly, the barn was just a great experience for me. And I think the kids in today's era, the kids see the programs a lot more. So I think they'll probably be more excited to be on Target Center floor.
Yeah.
And either way, it's going to be a great experience. That's for sure.
I got to ask before I let you go. I was talking with Owen about this. For the guys himself and a few others that play on your team that were on the football team and had what happened at US Bank Stadium, how much you seen that, Mike, that has not bolstered them, but kind of drove them this season, that how that game ended, they want to make this as special as they can for basketball this winter?
Well, what I'm amazed with those kids that played on the football team is the short turnaround they had, how they were able to get right back into basketball and go all in. I mean, typically kids would take a while to recover from a loss like that, but it just speaks volumes of their character and their resiliency to where those players come out and they're just ready to play basketball. And Owen's one of them. Owen's an outstanding leader. I mean, he gets vocal on the floor, but he leads by example too, and he goes out there and works tirelessly. So I think it's pretty special that, yes, that moment, that loss in that state championship has driven them, but they also understand completely different sport, completely different scenario. You know, basketball is a tough sport to make it this far in. There's a lot of competition, a lot of great teams, and for these kids to be in this position right now, it's an outstanding accomplishment.
I know you're going to have a ton of people there tonight. Thanks so much for doing this. Have a great day and good luck tonight, okay?
All right, thanks, Dom. We appreciate it.
Good to see you, bud. Mike Clark, head coach of the DGF boys. They'll take on Albany tonight, 8 o'clock from Target Center. We'll, of course, have highlights of that as the Rebels try to get it to the state championship game coming up later tonight. We'll take a break. Jory Collins, NDSU women's basketball head coach, around the corner as we'll recap the Bison season and what's ahead for the offseason. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Welcome back, everybody, here on this Friday morning edition of Hot Mike, WDAY Extra, InForum.com. All season long, we have had the North Dakota State women's basketball head coach join us, and he's good enough to give us one more segment to put a bow on things. I know he was hoping his team would still be playing, but the Bison lost at Oregon last Friday night as Jory Collins joins us here on this Friday. We were just joking off air watching the Kansas State game last night. You're telling me that's planned with Marquise Noel? That was not spur of the moment thing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was distracting. That guy made the Wade cut out of the corner. Lob dunk, man.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
That's the old, some people are playing checkers and some people are playing chess.
Well, K-State's been doing that, and that's they've had a heck of a run, and they will play tomorrow against Florida Atlantic to go to the Final Four. Obviously, I know you didn't want to not be playing right now. Tell me about what you saw last Friday against Oregon. And I mean, you and I know this, and I think for basketball fans that are maybe not totally plugged into women's hoops, Oregon's been really good, and they're still playing in this tournament. That's a team that maybe had a blip year that's going to be really good again next season.
Yeah, I mean they're high level. I mean they didn't have a lot of depth this year, just with numbers, with some injuries and things like that. And then they're, besides their point guard, everybody else that's playing is a really young player. And so uber talented, they can do a lot of things. And we looked at even before, like their record 17-14, the analytics said they should have been like 26-7. Just with some unlucky things. They lost a bunch of games by single digits in league play. And probably, had a top 20. They were number 20 in the net. So, I mean, they're playing high level every night. And so we knew that, the challenge was going to be big. I loved how we played in the first quarter. I thought we showed up and competed. It's just some of that athleticism. And I'll tell you the thing that worried me the most, Dom, is I watched their whole Pac-12 tournament leading up to it. And what I noticed was, the officiating. I mean, they were letting them play both ways in the whole tournament. And I was like, oh, God, if they're going to call it like this, then we're going to be in trouble. And they didn't really call anything both ways. And just, it's hard physically, when you're getting moved around and that athleticism really shows up and makes things difficult, makes passing difficult, getting shots off. You got to be quicker. You can be in the right spot defensively and maybe somebody rises up over you. So it's definitely a challenge, but it was fun. And I know I still enjoyed every minute of it. It was great to just be with our team one more time and get ready. I've said this a bunch this year. I've just really enjoyed this group of people and enjoyed being together with them. And to have that one more good experience was fun for us.
What'd you tell the team, Jory, after the game?
Just that I was proud of them. I also thanked them. I mean, this group has kind of refilled my cup, Dom, after, last year was really hard on me and people in our program. It just, made me really look in the mirror on, what am I doing? And what has this job turned into, being in this profession, and just makes you reflect when it's hard sometimes. And, this particular group, just the quality of kids had just totally, just refilled my cup of just being excited about what we're doing. And I've enjoyed them all year. So really just thanks to them for just being who they are. And obviously I felt like we took another step as a team, and this is going to be a great building season for us. And hopefully next year we can start where we left off this year and continue to rise.
When you look at how do you look back at this? Is there individual moments as a group? How do you look back at it where, wow, we beat South Dakota, we swept the regular season against them, that hasn't happened. We beat Minnesota. How do you take apart the season? Is it in chunks or is it as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, for what we were, 18-12, if you would have put my foot to it before the season, I might have guessed that exactly.
Okay.
And that's about where I thought we'd be. It came in different ways. I didn't know that we were going to start 6-0. I didn't know that we were going to lose 4 in a row. I didn't know that we're going to lose in the first round of the Summit League. That's always different in how you get to that. But not for me. I think for me in general, when I look back at our season, I think of individuals on our team. I just think about more than games, even, Dom, just practices, times we had together, our Greece trip. Those are the things that pop into my mind when I think about this season. And then obviously we've had some really good games, had some tough ones too. But even after the good ones and after the bad ones, the positivity you still felt with the people in the room is what was the consistent thing. And I think that's what, when I reflect back on this team, if you're going to put just joy, probably, of just being around them, is probably the thing that stands out the most.
So not that you need to know that you got a told you so here, but when you were on with me this summer, he said, Elle Evans, is she going to be a really good player? Was she better than what you thought, or about what she did in her freshman year is what you were expecting?
Yeah, I knew what I was confident in, that she was going to be a big impact player for us. Yeah. I think she probably exceeded my expectations on coming along defensively, picking up that end of it. And then the other thing that maybe stood out the most was a lot of freshmen hit a wall in maybe late January or maybe for a week, for, you got a 7 to 10 day stretch where before you catch your second wind, you've been playing longer than you've ever played. And she did not. We were playing her too many minutes probably. But she shot the ball and finished better. From January and February was her best month. I think she averaged 15 points a game in February and shot high 30s from 3. So she was getting better as we went along. And I think that was, says a lot about her. So I don't want to say surprise, but that was a pleasant thing to see that maybe you don't expect out of somebody like that.
When you look now, and I talked with Dave about this last week when he was on the show. So now you're in this time, are you worried the phone rings or a text message? How do you handle this now with players that will, some will go home or just you're not together every day, knowing that there are going to be people talking to them? How do you, especially after going what you went through last year, how do you handle that now?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, one of the pillars of our program is honesty, and being able to tell the truth, take the truth, live the truth. We bring them in and ask them straight up, what are your plans? And you hope you get the truth. And when you have good kids, you do. And so, we have those conversations. I think there's going to be turnover in just about every program every year in some way, shape, or form. It's just a convenient thing to be able to do now. And so now that that's become a regular thing, you feel like you're a little more prepared for it. You're prepared for it mentally. But just conversations. And yes, I mean, you worry you get the random text or, hey, can we meet? You're like, oh, yeah, what's that one going to be about? I'm glad I haven't got those yet. But yeah, I mean, it's always on your mind. That's part of it.
Have you had those conversations already happened with your team? And I guess where are you at with that? And I guess I'll ask, do you anticipate movement on off your roster for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have a couple potentially. We're having those conversations. And I haven't gotten through everybody on our team yet. Obviously, we're still just a week done.
Yeah.
And it's, sometimes you need more time than that. Other times I think people already know and know a long time ago what you want to do and what your plans are. Obviously, the earlier for better for for both parties. If you're gonna make a change. But yeah, I would just leave it down that we have those conversations. And when things happen, everybody's gonna know about it. But I don't near expect any kind of turnover like we had last year.
When you have the kind of season that you had, and I know there were people that were either coming on this show or emailing me, Jory, so what the heck's going on with both Jory and Dave? They can't coach. They're losing, all their players. And then you have the kind of season you had. Is that, I don't know if gratifying, say, you know what? It's not the coaching. It's the era of I can yell till I'm blue in the face, but I guess maybe if they hear something like you to say this is the era we live in, the changes, sometimes a lot of change can happen in an off season.
Yeah. I mean, it's a volatile, profession. It's up and down.
Yeah.
It's, it's a people business, Dom, and you're dealing with 10 plus different individuals. You're trying to get everybody on the same page, to be, what everybody says now is, I got to do what's best for me. Well, if you have 12 people all trying to do what's best for you, then who's doing what's best for the team? And that's a hard, sacrifice. People talk about it. You got to sacrifice as an athlete. Sometimes people are willing to do that, and sometimes people aren't. Getting everybody on the same page is different when you have different people.
Yep.
And that's the tall task. When everybody is committed to each other and people playing selfless, then we look like good coaches and you win games. When you're having internal battles, and people are looking out for themselves, then nobody looks very good. And that's the battle that you think you want to talk about, what offense we're running or what defense. None of that stuff matters. It's all the stuff that you don't see on the stat sheet that coaches spend 80% of their time dealing with, managing, talking about, trying to work through to get people on the same page and going in the same direction. And that's, you can look at some of the best coaches ever, championship coaches. They all have a bad year or a couple bad years here and there, or stretches. And it's just because the people in their program, not everybody's going in the same direction at that particular time. And it's now, especially with every different people in other people's ears, and, you know, who are you listening to? You can get fragmented a little bit more easily because there's just too many outside sources that have people's ear.
I got to ask. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you're kind of shining the light on that, because, you know, this time last year, I think we were talking about this every day, and I said it. I mean, people aren't going to listen to me, but the results are there for both what you and Dave did this year. I think that speaks wholly of where we're at with college basketball, both on the men's and the women's side. I do want to get your thoughts on two things, though. Did you watch any of the South Dakota State Virginia Tech game?
Yes, I had it on my phone, so I couldn't watch. I was following along more than I was actually watching.
Had a tough start, but they played well in the second half. The Jacks did. You can't fall behind like that.
The other thing with the women's tournament that I hope they do away with.
That was my next question.
Having to go play.
Yeah. We
should get past that and do it like the men do it. I mean, I get it, but that makes it really tough.
Well,
you got to go play on the 1 seed's home floor,
right?
And I thought they played a really good second half.
Yep.
You knew they were going to compete to the end. That's just who they are, and made a good run at it. But if that's a neutral floor, maybe the first half isn't the way it is.
Right.
And so that's something I hope that the women's committee continues to look at.
Well, that was my next question, was how impressive is it that what Ole Miss and what Miami did to go and win road games earlier this week?
Yeah, huge. Because, you know, when you go and look at the bracket, and typically the women's bracket, you can follow that pretty close to the top seeds. And I think there's two that are 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
The two real upsets were Miami and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And if you're going to say upsets, you're saying that just because of seeding. You know, an 8-1 is an upset, especially on a home floor, regardless of how good you think Ole Miss is or was maybe misseeded. But the same thing, you know, for Miami there, those are extra special because you're not only beating a good team, but, you know, that's a home floor is worth some points. And to go do that, they're probably pretty confident coming off those wins. And you know, that could lead you into the next one too.
So what are we staring at here on the women's side? Are we destined for South Carolina, UConn, South Carolina, Iowa? What do you think here for what's going to happen over this weekend?
Yeah. Here's what I would tell you today, Dom. Here's who I want you to watch.
Okay.
I want you to watch Villanova.
Okay.
In Miami. Because Villanova has a player, I can't remember if Maddie Segrist, who's probably the best player that nobody talks about. And I think she's a Wade finalist. So I think she's not going to win the National Player of the Year. But, I mean, she scored, I think she's getting close to like 3,000 points.
Holy
She
cow.
had a 50-piece at some point this year. And I think she's like a stretch 4, but she's one of the best players that nobody's seen. So I'm locking into that game today because I've only got to see her in pieces. But, man, as far as I think UConn's playing good.
Yeah.
And they're fully healthy. It'd be hard for me to pick against South Carolina in any way right now. They're just kind of firing on all cylinders.
And the scary part is for Connecticut to get all their pieces back, and they still don't have Paige Beckers. Like, she's coming back next year, you know?
Yeah, they're coming. I mean, they're going to be exactly what they've had as much adversity probably this year as anybody. And, I mean, those will be good games. Tennessee's playing really good.
Yep.
I mean, geez. I'm looking at it. Iowa's going to beat Colorado.
Yeah. He's doing the bracket right in front of us here, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
how about
LSU?
And LSU's there too. I mean, you can't outcount them, right?
Reese is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting good because that's where as it shrinks down, I mean, those best players tend to rise up. And then you can start every game's got a superstar here from here on in.
Our crack research staff tells me Maddie Segrist has 28.65. That's her point total.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So gosh, I mean, she's not going to get to 3 probably. She'd have to play the rest of it. She'd have to make it to the national championship game, but she'd be dang close.
Yeah, no doubt. Before I let you go, man, I just want to thank you for doing this, making time for us each week and coming on and being as open and forthright as you always are. I think people really appreciate it and got an up-close look at your team, and I always appreciate it and looking forward to the offseason and seeing your team back out on the floor next year. And we'll do this again next season, all right?
Sounds good, Dom. And, hey, thank you for giving us the opportunity. Talk about our team. I appreciate it.
No problem, my man. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, all right?
Hey, you too.
There he goes. Jory Collins, North Dakota State women's basketball head coach into the offseason. And as he mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised with some turnover in his roster. It's such a different comparing the women and the men with the portal, but it's not like it doesn't happen. So for the reasons why for the women would leave is vastly different than why the men go, but there is change, and I wouldn't be surprised with some turnover on his roster. Now, the names on that could surprise me, but I would anticipate you're going to have a different-looking team. Outside of the people that we know are graduating and moving on, I think you're going to have some other turnover there. We're due for a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour 1. Brad Schlossman around the corner as well, as we'll chat what happened to the Fargo Regional last night. Hour 2 of Hot Mike Around the Bend on a chilly Friday. We're back after this. All right, fun first hour of our show. Lots to come in hour 2. NFL draft stuff is starting to heat up. Pro days are going on. Bison have their pro day coming up next week. We're excited about that. When we come back, Brad Schlossman will join us. We'll start hour 2 and recap what we saw at the regional yesterday here at Fargo. Hour 2 of Hot Mike on a Friday. Back after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo. Time to chat some hockey.
Shot score! North Dakota wins!
The best college hockey writer in the country is on deck.
North Dakota, champions of the college hockey world.
Here's Brad Schlossman.
Perfect time of the year for our guy who's going crazy between everything happened in the portal, then actual games happening yesterday. You got to drop this stat on me. I'm sure you probably know it off the top of your head now that another number 1 bit the dust. What is the stat now for 4 seeds against 1 seeds here over the last 10 years or something? It's crazy.
Well, since 2006, when the Holy Cross beat Minnesota in Grand Forks, there's only been 1 year where all 4 1 seeds advanced past the first round. And that was actually last year.
Man.
So you cannot count on a 4 beating a 1 every year. It's an anomaly when all of the ones advance.
Yeah.
So that was the one I pegged too. I had in my bracket that Cornell was going to beat Denver. I thought that was a really challenging matchup for Denver. I thought stylistically that was not a good matchup for them. And, I don't know if Denver was playing its best at the end of the year. So that one actually did not surprise me. That was one I pegged.
All right, let's start. I mentioned this off the top of the show about the attendance at Shields Arena. You were there last night. When the bracket comes out, then you have the Gophers there, St. Cloud State, and Mankato. Your attendance is going to be better. But even watching on television, you were there in person. I was really impressed. I was wrong. I thought it would be empty. That was not the case. That was a really good crowd last night for both games.
Yeah, I kind of figured when they had the 3 regional teams and Shields Arena is only 5,000.
Right.
We're not talking an XL Energy Center type of building. I figured that it would be really well attended, and it was. So didn't really catch me off guard when you have the 3 regional teams, and it just so set up for the committee that they could put those 3 teams there. There's some people, a lot of talk about that, which kind of surprised me seeing some of the talk about it because it was where the seeds set up. They had different teams in different leagues, and it was a 1, a 2, and a 3 seed. And, had Minnesota State been a 2 seed, then it wouldn't have happened, but they're a 3 seed, and it was set up right there for the committee to do that. They could bus, they don't have to pay for flights and, any other good attended, a well-attended regional.
How good was Minnesota last night after a slow start? How much did, I guess, the 5-minute major change everything?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question that could have two different answers. How good was Minnesota in the first 30 minutes of last night's game?
Not good.
They weren't great.
Yeah.
I thought that game was pretty even. The scoring chances, the shots on goal, Canisius was leading. In the second half of the game, completely opposite. I thought Minnesota was really good. I think they started getting it going a little before the major. They scored at the end of the second period, and then the major really, was the end for Canisius. They scored a couple goals on it, and then all of a sudden the confidence was there. And you could see the top players for Minnesota played really well. So it was two different Minnesota teams, I thought.
And now they get St. Cloud State, who they split with during the season. The Huskies have been in this spot before, Brad. Remember they played UND the first time at Shields Arena in 2015. Is this ripe for an upset here tomorrow night?
I don't think so. Just St. Cloud State had a great start to the year. Their goaltending's really good right now. But they have a star defenseman, union transfer. Ever since he went out, they really haven't been the same team. They're learning how to win without him right now. But if you look at some of the metrics and the shots on goal and puck possession and different things like that, they're surviving with really good goaltending right now. I thought Minnesota State controlled that game for large stretches yesterday. I thought in the frozen faceoff, North Dakota played pretty well against them. Jackson Castor is playing great right now, and I think that's a huge help. But if they're going to get past Minnesota, they've got to play a whole lot better than they did yesterday. I just don't know if they're playing as well as they were early in the year. And, when you lose your best defenseman, that'll happen. So I really think that's going to be a long shot for St. Cloud State to come out of the regional, but it's sports, so who knows?
It's hockey, especially postseason hockey, so really nobody knows. And that leads to perfectly, and I know you knew on this with Cornell, but Denver doesn't score a goal for its final two games. I mean, that is how much of a face flop is that for them in this season? They won 30 games.
Yeah, they had a great season. They won the Penrose, which is always a tremendous accomplishment. Sometimes I feel like the regular season title is undervalued. That's something where you have to be the best team over a long stretch of time, and the national tournament is one game. So I really, European soccer leagues really value the championships because you're the best team over a season. And sometimes I feel that's undervalued in college hockey because it's really a good measure. But no, they weren't the same team at the end of the year. You wonder how healthy they were because the first round of the playoffs, they sat out a lot of guys. They all came back for the frozen faceoff, but in the back of your head, you're wondering, what level were they at? I thought in the second half of the year, watching them play a few times when I thought this team's not going to win a national title this year. I just didn't think they were playing at the same level as last season. And, Cornell, like I said, just a really bad matchup for them. They're Denver's a smaller skilled team. Cornell is big. They're physical. They defend. And they played a Cornell game to a T yesterday, and they're going on, and I'm really not all that surprised by it. Cornell's a really good team.
You make a great point, though, about I think that goes almost with everything, that we undervalue what the regular season title means, a conference championship or a league title like that, because we're obsessed on the championship part. We should be, but that's the breadth of the season. That shouldn't go. It shouldn't just be thrown away. Which it's no solace to the Denver players today. I'm sure they feel terrible, but that shouldn't go overlooked at how well that they played all season long.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like who's the best team over a 5-month sample size, or who's the best team over a 4-game sample size? And there's just so much emphasis on the 4-game sample size rather than the 5-month. And it's like winning a league title is a regular season title is such a big accomplishment. So, You even think to Atlantic Hockey, they get one bid. It's whoever wins their tournament.
Right.
Here, RIT was a wonderful team the entire season. They lose a game or two at the wrong time. Pro sports, they do series. So maybe there's a little bit larger of sample size, but like college sports, even college basketball, it's
good luck.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's interesting, but I think there is value to winning the regular season title, and Denver had a great year. It just, they lost at the wrong time.
So off of that, I don't dare ask you who's gonna win today, but is there an upset you have brewing or potential one of the 4 games today?
Well, I think I don't have anyone pulling an upset in my bracket. However, Merrimack's playing very well. They're playing Quinnipiac. I picked Quinnipiac to win the title before the year started, so I'm not changing now. But that is not an easy matchup for Quinnipiac. Michigan, I think, is a big favorite against Colgate. I mean, Colgate wasn't even one of the top teams and top 2 teams in their league during the regular season. The one thing is their goaltender, Carter Gylander, is one of those guys who can steal a game. He's a big Detroit Red Wings draft pick, and he's a really good goaltender. Michigan generates a ton of chances. They also give up a ton. So, I think Colgate might get some looks to score. And if Carter Gylander's on, that is some, don't count out the Raiders because, he's a tremendous goalie. I got to beat the drum on this. I know you don't have the answer, but I'm on this, and I'm not going to give it up until I get some answers. So Cornell's playing. They're in the regional final. The Princeton men's basketball team is in the Sweet 16. Why in the world are Ivy League teams allowed to participate in every other postseason but football? I need an answer on that. It's like a 70-year-old rule that the Ivy League presidents have in place for about academics, but every other sport they participate in the postseason. It makes no sense. The Ivy Leagues do start like a month late in college hockey. Right. They are not. They never start when everyone else does. So they definitely have different rules in hockey too. It's just the start of the season instead of the postseason for them. But I think those also are. They're practicing. Yeah. They're, it's not like they're not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like football is the same way. Football, they don't start till week 3, I think it is, of the FCS regular season. But again, what do you think they're doing? They're just hanging out. They've started playing exhibition games during that time. Yeah. And so they definitely have some unique rules in college hockey as well. I don't get it on the Ivy League. All right, so now to everything you've been doing this week. Has there been a move, either guy coming back or staying, that surprised you on the UND front? Well, I think the one maybe that was a little surprising was Reese Gaber coming back. Senior night, the last game in the Ralph Engelstad Arena this year, as the tributes were going, Gaber was tearing up on the ice. And, I think everyone was watching that and said, oh, this is his last game in the Ralph, isn't it? And I asked him about that, and he said, at that time, I thought it was my last game. Oh. I thought I was leaving, and he came back and had some second thoughts and decided that he's going to come back for his senior season, which is such a massive lift for UND because he was a 20-goal scorer, really dynamic player, and UND is going to be replacing almost their entire D-core next year. So to have a guy like him who's going to score goals and maybe cover up some defensive, the UND is it's going to be a process next year with the D. And I'm guessing there's going to be some nights where the rookies have good nights and some nights where they don't. That's kind of how freshman D are in college hockey. And, when they have some nights where they aren't very good, a guy like Reese Gaber can cover it up with a couple goals. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. He's a free agent, correct? So this time next year, he'll have his pick of the litter of where he wants to go play in the NHL. For an NHL team. And that was his situation this year too. He had several teams that were in on him, and so that's why I think it was a little bit of a wow. He's coming back this year, and UND has to be thrilled about that because a month ago they probably weren't so sure that was going to happen. So That's a huge lift to them. Now UND's waiting word on Judd Caulfield to see if he comes back or not. If he does, I think that would be another huge lift because you look at their forwards up front next year and some of their most skilled players. You have Reese Gaber, small guy, Jackson Blake, small, Owen McLaughlin, a smaller guy, Jaden Perron's coming in from the Chicago Steel. He's another small guy. So now you have a big body like Judd Caulfield that gives you a different element. I think if he comes back, that would be another huge lift for this team.
You mentioned the defensive guys, which I know is not a surprise. First with Tyler Clevin, who's, I believe, is he reporting today with the Senators?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a too much of a surprise. And Ethan Frisch signing a deal in the AHL for just on Clevin's time, which is people remember for his huge hits. I think I always remember his offensive game, but how well will his game transfer over, Brad, to the NHL? Is this a guy that's going to step in and be really good right away with Ottawa?
I think it's going to be a process for him. I don't think he's going to step in and be a great NHL D-man right away. He is still developing. Like his game from where it was 2 years ago, even last year, to where it is today, he's constantly been on a really good trajectory, and he's still going. So he's still a developing player. Will his game translate well to the NHL? Absolutely. I think so, because he has so many elements. One thing I think covering guys who've gone to the NHL, which guys translate and which guys make it. And to me, guys have to have an elite attribute. I've covered a guy that stands out to me was like Jason Gregoire. He was a really good forward. Gregoire was good at everything, but he wasn't elite at any single thing. And he didn't end up making it. And some of the guys, it seems like you have to have an elite attribute. Clevin has several elite attributes. His physicality is elite. His size is elite. His shot is elite. Like he has several distinguishing traits, and I think that's why he makes it. So it'll be interesting to follow, but he's far from a finished product. He's still developing, and it'll be interesting to see where he takes it.
Before I let you go, looking at, I don't know the updated number, you will, of how many guys total have been in the portal. Is that about what you thought, or is that even higher number once the season is ended of getting into the transfer portal overall?
So far, I would say it's about what I thought, but we'll see in the next month or so, and we'll have to crunch the numbers. At this point, it hasn't been drastically different from the last couple of years. The difference was this year they had an entering date for non-graduate students, and that was Monday when it opened up for non-graduate students. So it certainly was a crazy day Monday. Like we hadn't seen. Usually, it was more of a steady trickle of guys in that, X amount per day, where Monday it was just madness, and Tuesday a little bit, and then Wednesday a little bit less so. So it was, I think Monday after the bracket gets announced annually is going to be a day that, we're going to be tracking all the players that come in.
Is this a terrible comparison about with Gaber coming back, like Troy Stetcher? He did it. He bet on himself, and boy, that worked out. Is that similar or not so much?
Yeah, I think the NHL teams are going to be there for him. I do think there are elements to his game that he can work on
better at,
and better set himself up to enter the pros. And he kind of has a history of this. When he was in the USHL, he took an extra year with Dubuque. And he ended up being the USHL's MVP that year. And then he came in and he was ready to go. And I think that extra year in the USHL really helped him. I think there are elements that he can work on next year that will better prepare him to make the transition. Like, it's one thing to sign the contract. It's another thing to stick. And it's challenging. So I think while he could have signed this year, I think the contract will be there, but he can really work to set himself up to be more prepared to make that jump, because there are definitely elements of his game that he can continue to round out.
Sorry, I had one more. The guys that went in the portal with Brent Johnston and Helston, the backup goaltender, I know neither one had played for a while. Are there any surprises there of the guys that went into the portal, or is that what Brad Berry was anticipating?
Yeah, I think in this day and age, if a guy's not playing, they're always going to be a portal threat. And the 4 guys that went in are 4 guys that didn't play in their last games of the year. And the 2 of them were NHL draft picks. So when you have an NHL draft pick, then you're going to have a lot of people that say, the NHL team, the agents are going to say, hey, look, like you have to play it. You have to develop. So I'm not really surprised. Some of them were, probably looking at roles next year that weren't going to be all that much more. You look at Matteo Costantini. I think Matteo is a really good player. I think he has a bright future. When I start filling out UND's line charts next year, I don't see him playing top 6 minutes. And so, and that's his role. That's where he can thrive. And so, going to somewhere where he can do that, I understand why he went in. It also makes me wonder, did he probably know that Reese Gaber's coming back? Did he think some of these guys are coming back and look at the line chart and say, hey, look, like, I don't know where I fit in next year. I'm going to go somewhere that I'm going to get the minutes to play. And so that when I started looking at the line chart, wasn't surprised. Some of the defensemen probably would have had larger roles, but again, like I think when Brent Johnson wasn't playing in the second half of the year, I think that was fairly obvious that he was going to be gone. Maybe Luke Bass a little bit of a surprise, but 4 guys that didn't play, that's going to happen from in this era.
You a fan of the extra day now between the semifinal and the final? I know that was what coaches were pushing for. What do you? Was this the second or third year they've done this?
This is the second year.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know if I have strong feelings either way, but I think it makes sense. I think with scoring being lower in college hockey, I think there is a threat of a UND Minnesota Duluth 5 overtime. They played for 5 overtimes, and that was part of the reason they have the day off now. I think that was the longest game in NCAA hockey history. So you could say, well, it's an anomaly, but with scoring getting lower, I think you can have 3 overtime games. And then all of a sudden to come back and play the next day is challenging. In the NHL, they rarely have back-to-backs in the playoffs. You can play an incredibly long game, but they always have days off. And to play a game that's potentially goes 4 overtimes and then ask them to play again the next day, I think that is a risk. I don't think that's good for anyone, especially the health of the players. So in that sense, I think it probably is a good idea.
Especially if you want the best games now, you can't do that. You can't have that happen. If you want the best games to mean the most, asking them to do that seems unfair. That's just
I agree. And you also have to look at player health and safety. Yep. And is it even safe or healthy to do that? And I don't think it is. No. So I think that's what they looked at and said, hey, this is a real risk that we could have a game go this long. And then we ask them to come back and play the next day.
Right?
Like in the regular season, they play back-to-backs, but there's no risk of having a 4 overtime game.
Correct.
So I do think it makes a lot of sense to, make sure that doesn't happen. They're lucky Minnesota, Duluth, North Dakota happened in the region final and there wasn't another day.
Exactly right.
And they made the smart play, I think, to head that off before the situation does occur.
Great stuff, man. I know you have another busy day on tap. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. We'll talk again next week, okay?
For sure. Thanks, Dom.
There he goes. Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald. Tons of stuff at grandforksherald.com, including recaps of the games last night, and looking forward to the game between Minnesota and St. Cloud State tomorrow night. We're due for a break. Really interesting story breaking right now on the Bally Sports debacle with MLB. It's got some implications here. I'm just sorting through it now. We'll get into that here before we say goodbye on this Friday morning. We're back after this. Well, we got a quick segment here as we're getting ready for the bottom of the hour, so I don't get too much into this. On the Bally Sports, Diamond Sports Group, and Major League Baseball, all I'll tell you is that it is a dumpster fire. Does it mean the Twins aren't going to be on TV next Thursday? No, but if you're a fan of another team, and I know there are many that watch our show or listen to our show that may be, your teams may not be. And I cannot believe that it's actually come to this, but it's not good. That's all I can say on it. It's not ideal on what is coming down there, what's happening with a couple of these teams. The Diamondbacks being one, now the Padres are another. I mean, the Diamondbacks is one thing. Arizona's not going to be good. San Diego is expected to be a contender. The Padres made the NLCS. They are poised to be a World Series contender, and their games may not be on television. That's at least from the early part of this story what I can tell you there. It's not good. How is that possibly? How could they let this happen? Is another thing. I scratch my head on some things with this. So let's take a break. We'll sort this out. I know for you TV rubes, you'll be excited and interested in this story, and we'll do a couple other things as well before we say goodbye on this Friday morning. Hot Mike back after this on WDAY Extra, InForum.com. All right. 22 years ago today, for my dad, this is his favorite piece of video that he's ever seen. Randy Johnson in a spring training game and a bird. I mean, the bird exploded. Oh, my God. 22 years ago today, March 24th, 2001. It's just unbelievable that happened. Oh, man, you can watch that over and over. I know my dad has, so that's for him this morning, that happened 22 years ago today. Randy Johnson killed a bird. It's just hysterical. Okay. Couple things here as we get ready for the weekend, and we're on the doorstep of the new baseball season. And in light of our conversation we had with Dick Bramer on Wednesday with the huge specter of what's going to happen with baseball on TV, with the regional sports outlets that are owned under the Bally name, that are owned by the Diamond Sports Group, that file bankruptcy. That's 19 of the 30 baseball teams are Bally networks. Notable, obviously, the Twins are, the Brewers are, the Royals are, the Tigers are. So 3 of the 5 teams, in the American League Central are. No, 4 of the 5, because Cleveland is too. Cleveland, Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota are all Bally teams. The only one that isn't is the White Sox. They're on NBC Sports Chicago. Have this huge elephant basically weighing over them. It's like an anvil about what's going to happen with their television rights. And again, this is deep in the weeds stuff, but John Oran, who does a great media podcast with Andrew Marchand, for those that like that stuff, I can't encourage you to listen to that more than our show. Headline this morning, no clear picture. As the Padres wait on Diamond Sports fee decision, MLB looks for overall alternatives to be prepared. Not great. That's a scary headline to start. The issue, what to do with local teams if some start reverting back to Major League Baseball in the wake of Diamond Sports Group's recent Chapter 11 filing. Again, from the story, these meetings take on a greater sense of urgency last week. There's meetings now to be held between DirecTV and Major League Baseball, as MLB believes it's a week away from reclaiming the rights to the San Diego Padres, whose games are carried on the Diamond-owned Bally Sports San Diego. Diamond Sports missed its most recent rights fee payment to the Padres earlier this month. The company has a period that lasts until 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, when it can make the payment without penalty. The Padres play their first game on Thursday. Now, this has already happened with the Diamondbacks, that they missed their first payment there. Oren writes, if Diamond makes its Padres payment, MLB will wait until another team, such as the Cincinnati Reds or the Cleveland Guardians, has a rights fee payment that is missed. Now, MLB has been active in trying to get distributors to back its plan. The league's pitch has been simple. If or when rights revert back to the league, it is asked distributors to carry those teams' live games at little or no cost, at least for this season. The idea for Major League Baseball is that the league will pick up more rights as team rights deals with Diamond's Bally Sports brands RSNs expire, a process that could take several years due to the length of many of those contracts. Once MLB can go to the market with the rights for several teams, it will be able to work out better distribution deals that it could pay more. Okay, so there's a lot there. So let's try and simplify this. So the Twins deal with Bally is up after next season, after 2024. But again, if they aren't making payments, MLB wants to swoop in and say, okay, hey, DirecTV, or will you put such and such games on? Will you put the Twins on this channel? You won't have to pay us. We're going to bite the bullet on it for this season. Which I imagine DirecTV, Comcast will do that. I'm not even getting into the streaming part, folks. So you people out there that have Hulu, YouTube, I don't even know what to tell you there. I can tell you that most of these teams don't have deals yet because the Padres aren't going to give up those rights because Bally Sports San Diego says, hey, Padres, can we have the rights to the streaming? And the Padres are saying, you can kick rocks. We're not going to do that because we know you're up the river here, that you're not going to have any money. So it's really convoluted here. What baseball wants is they want, okay, well, we'll get all of the 19 teams that have Bally deals. Let's get them all under our umbrella, and then we control that. We can go to whoever and put the games on there. Therefore, we make more money, and the games are more widely available there. Oran continues, the plan would have distributors carry the games, plus likely a pregame and postgame show on an open channel. MLB has formed a local media division headed by Billy Chambers that will be responsible for producing these games, likely using freelance production crews in those markets. The fact that here we are, we're, 6 days out from opening day, and this is going to be just an albatross over baseball's neck. It's just there's no way other way to think it is so bad. In a sport that, we're talking about how popular and how exciting the World Baseball Classic was, and then you've got teams, and it's not the Diamondbacks, it's not the Reds, it's not the Pirates, it's the Padres. San Diego's one of the big market teams now, with how many superstars they have on their team. They have Manny Machado. They have Juan Soto. They've got Fernando Tatis Jr. You got three of the biggest, best players in the game all play for them. And you're telling me their games can't be on TV in their own market? That's terrible. I mean, I understand that baseball can't worry about another business and what their finances are, but we saw this coming. We've seen this happening with the regional cable networks, that things were heading in a bad direction. Now, the fact they were going to go bankrupt, I don't know if anybody saw that even until recent times. But and baseball's not alone here. Hockey and basketball are going to be in this same boat next season. They're only getting a pass because their regular seasons are almost done. Hockey has 2 weeks left? Basketball, the same. And then the playoffs are all on national networks, so they don't have to worry about it. But baseball, we're in this boat. And it's not good. And frankly, those baseball teams, like the Twins, like the Reds, like the Diamondbacks, they count on those TV deals to bolster their payroll because it's a huge chunk of change. Now, say, okay, this $1 billion, whatever it is gone. It's just gone. I don't know how you make that up. And for teams out there, they're left holding the bag. Wait a minute. How are we going to recoup these finances that we were counting on from the regional networks? Now they're just Dunzo? Teams like the Brewers. I look at the Marlins, who already were scraping by. It's bad. I got an email, and Dom, what are the teams that aren't on the Bally networks? Well, the headliners, the Mets aren't. Mets have their own network. Yankees have their own network. Cubs have their own network. Dodgers have their own network. Those are the biggies that you don't have to worry about. Some others, like the White Sox, have their own deal. The Red Sox have their own network on Nesson. Thanks, Eric. Oakland is on NBC Sports Bay Area like the Giants are. Oakland and San Francisco don't. Baltimore and Washington are on Masson, which is another regional cable outlet. The Orioles and the Nationals, they have their own deal, which also is not great. Last year, the Orioles didn't even have most of their games on. That's the same group that Dick Bramer told us they weren't sending their TV guys on the road until baseball got intervened in that. Manfred actually got intervened on that to make sure that they were sending their play-by-play and analysts on the road. They were calling those games in Baltimore, still off monitors, when everybody else had gone back out on the road to still do things. I think that's everybody that I can think of. Most everyone else, like you said, 19 of the 30 have Bally deals. And, I mean, baseball's doing really well. Really, really well. Attendance is good. But there still is a regional sport that people watch on television. And you got to have your games on. So, this is a hell of a story. Just added on here from Oran's piece. Of course, they are swayed by Major League Baseball's asking cost for this season. Not only will they carry the games for little or no cost, but the distributors expect that they will be able to get a rebate from RSNs that lose such high-profile teams, like the Padres, like, the Texas Rangers. The Phillies have their own deal. They're on NBC Sports Philadelphia. I'm just trying to think. Toronto has their own deal with Sportsnet in Canada. But we're thinking everybody else, Houston's now on a Bally network now. They used not to be. They are on a Bally channel now. So, yeah, the Pirates in Seattle are two others ones. And their cable networks are also going under that they have. So I understand for people that maybe don't follow this totally. It's like, this is a story I don't really follow or get or care about. You will when it affects the Twins. Now, I'm telling you right now, and Bramer said the games are going to be on TV this season. Whether that, at least for Thursday, we know they're going to be on Bally Sports North. I can't sit here and tell you by July they still will be. We don't know if they're going to be still solvent by then. The Twins have a deal with Bally Sports North through 2024. They're expecting that Bally Sports North will still pay the Twins. But when that first payment doesn't happen, and again, I'm down the road. Maybe this is a topic we can dive into if people are interested in it. I know I am. Once the season gets going, get a couple of guests that can speak more to this than I can. Then all hell's going to break loose then. When the first payment is missed, like it has been with Arizona, like it will be with San Diego, then it's going to get crazy. So you think Twins fans now are mad that can't watch them on Hulu and YouTube TV. Wait till you can't even watch them on cable or DirecTV. Then we're going to have chaos. All right? Just a shake your head kind of deal with what's going on right there with baseball and its TV deal. We will take our final break. We come back. We'll get you ready for a great sports weekend that's on tap and wrap up our week in style. Hot Mike. We put the curtain down after this on WDAY Extra at InForum.com. All right. Fun week here on our show. We had some great guests. Matt Entz joined us earlier this week. Justin Gard, Dick Bramer. Our usual cast of characters here as well. Excited about next week. We're going to be back on the road on Wednesday. We'll be up at the indoor practice facility. Our first time of taking the show there for NDSU's Pro Day. We'll also give you kind of a tour of the building as well. We're excited about that. That's coming up on the show on Wednesday. We'll have also a few of the NDSU guys that are going through Pro Day will join us on the program. I believe actually Noah Gindorf is going to join us for Bison tight end on Tuesday's show. So excited about that. Coming up next week. So we may have run down with all the winter tournaments, but we're still heating up here. We got plenty of good stuff going on. We're excited about that coming up on the show next week. Now, just going through here the list of, back in our last topic here, of teams that have their own networks here. Because I'm not sure if I missed anybody. Angels are on Bally. Royals are Bally. The Cubs have their own. The Mariners are on Root. Dodgers have their own. The Reds are a Bally. Arizona a Bally. Texas is a Bally. The Giants are on NBC Sports Bay Area. Padres are a Bally. White Sox are on NBC Chicago. Brewers are a Bally. The A's are on NBC Bay Area. Cleveland's a Bally. The Rockies are a Root team as well. The Cardinals are a Bally. The Blue Jays are a Sportsnet in Canada. Atlanta's a Bally. Houston is. Red Sox have Nesson. Tampa Bay's a Bally. Washington's on Masson. The Phillies, are on NBC Sports Philly. Baltimore is Masson. The Twins are a Bally. Tigers are a Bally. Yankees and Mets have their own deal. The Pirates have Root, and the Marlins are a Bally. It's quite a few. It's a mess how to figure this out for baseball. And it looks like now MLB has to swoop in. I don't know if that means if MLB ends up airing the games, if those games are going to be on that channel. I don't think so either. I had that question posed. Like, well, let's just say that happens. Are the Twins still going to be on, the channel listing on your guide on either Midco, Sparklight, DirecTV, however? I don't think so. Again, another question deeper in the weeds on that, but we'll try and get some answers, and maybe we'll even do that next week as well. Speaking of television, let's get you ready for what to watch before we say so long here on this Friday morning. NCAA basketball tournaments both in full swing tonight. The men's tournament, the game I'm most intrigued by, Princeton and Creighton, 8 o'clock tonight on TBS. The Tigers, the 15 seed, can they keep that Cinderella run going? Can they go like St. Peter's did and make it to the Elite Eight? They'll match up with Baylor Shireman and Greg McDermott and that Creighton team, 8 o'clock tonight on TBS. That game being played in Louisville. That'll be preceded by San Diego State and Alabama. Miami, Houston, the game in Kansas City, followed by Xavier and Texas. I believe Jim Nantz and his crew are going to be in Kansas City. That means Ian Eagle and Jim Spanarkel will have the games in Louisville between San Diego State and Bama, Princeton, and Creighton. Colorado, Iowa today in the women's basketball tournament. 6:30 tonight on ESPN. That means Caitlin Clark watch there. All the games today are on ESPN. You heard Jory Collins. He's advocating for that Miami-Villanova game. That's the first game at 1:30 on ESPN. You got games at 1:30, 4, 6:30, and 9 o'clock on ESPN on the women's basketball tournament. Wrapped up with an Ole Miss-Louisville game. That'll be fun in Seattle. That LSU-Utah game in the middle of the day at 4 o'clock. Sign me up for that one. I'm down with that one. It'll be okay as well. And then tonight for the NCAA hockey tournament, Colgate and Michigan. The Wolverines are one of the top seeds. I believe the number 3 overall seed in the tournament. They'll take on Colgate team. You heard Brad say that's got hot. 7:30 tonight. That's on ESPN2 for that game tonight between the Raiders and the Wolverines. You've got Penn State, Michigan Tech coming up this afternoon. Quinnipiac and Merrimack also at about 4:30. Harvard and Ohio State will start things 1 o'clock on ESPNU. So you've got plenty of choices to check things out. Also, of course, the Minnesota Boys State Basketball Tournament semifinals today. In Class A, Russell, Taylor, Couthton will take on Cherry. That's Isaac Azima's team. At noon in Class A, New Life Academy against Spring Grove is at 2. And then tonight you got the 2A semifinals, Holy Family against Minnehaha at 6. And that'll be followed by DGF and Albany at 8 o'clock. And the Rebels get one more upset and get to the state championship game. It'll be a heck of a way if they can do that tonight. We'll have highlights of that game coming up on our sports tonight at 10 o'clock. Thanks, as always, to all of our great crew that makes the show happen each and every day. They did a great job this week. If you notice, we got some more innovations. We're doing new stuff each and every day. So we think the people like it. We're going to give it to them. Thanks to our guests today, to Mike Clark, Jory Collins, and Brad Schlossman. If you missed any of our show, you can podcast it, of course, anytime at InForum.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching both today and all week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy all the sports. We'll recap everything coming up on Monday's show. We'll see you then on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Have a great weekend, everybody.